Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and I've got the wrong screen up behind me. Okay. Hold on a second, guys. Let me get my act together. How about this one? That's the one I want. Let me also push this back. And if you wonder why I'm like this, I just looked in my handbag and found I have two uh, eyeglass cases missing. One with my good eyeglasses in them, prescription, and the other one which had my credit cards and a pile of money in it. So, and I don't know where they are. I was at some place yesterday, and I wonder if they fell out. So I was running around my house, looking everywhere, looking in the car, and I assume that they fell out elsewhere. So either some nice person will turn them into a lost and found where I was, or I'll never see them again. So that's why I am discombobulated. So anyway, welcome everybody. Thank you for saying you can see and hear me, at least that. All right. All right. So anyway, welcome everybody who is in the chat room. Thank you for being a little patient because I know I was a wee bit late, but I am here. I'm ready to go with this very fascinating case. And if you'd like to be in the chat room in the future, please do click the link below for Patreon and join that. And you can come to 8 live shows a month. And if you don't want to do that, please at least subscribe to the channel. This is an educational channel and your support is welcome. All right, let's get to it. I'll try to get my act together. Yeah, it really annoying. Really annoying. Yeah. So either they're gone or they're not. So what can I do at this point except make some phone calls? The glasses thing, I know it well. Well, I've been going back in my head trying to remember what I put. I went to sing. We had our Christmas chorale songs. We did a big performance, and I was loading up things in my bag for the performance, the music, making sure I had my glasses in there. And I came home, I had the music. So that's not good. So anyway, and a bunch of money and a whole bunch of credit cards. Don't use them. If you've got my credit cards, don't use them. give me a day or two to cancel them all. Anyway, all right. Yeah, thank you very much. I've been, I have to say this, in my whole life, I've been extraordinarily lucky. One time, I was out and about in Minnesota and Minneapolis, and I came home, and the next morning there was a police officer knocking at my door, and I answered the door, and he said, "Here's your wallet." And I'm like, "What?" I didn't even know the wallet was missing. Apparently, I had dropped it when I was leaving Walmart. When they were closing, I was going out with the crowd and dropped my wallet in the doorway with all the people. And some lovely woman picked it up and gave it to the police. So, if you get lucky enough times, if you don't get lucky once, you can live with that. So, yeah. So let's see if I get my stuff back. I'll let you know. But I'm like sweating, had to run in and change my clothes because I was overheated from running around everywhere looking for the missing items. So anyway, let's get to this case. This is a really odd case that there are some people who believe this man is innocent. This is Scott Davis, who was convicted and is in prison for life for the murder of David Coffin. A very bad last name. Yes, it is. David Coffin. And he was suspected, and the DA suspected of killing him. And the DA at the time in Georgia didn't think there was enough evidence to go to trial that he felt confident of. So he didn't. And he remained free for the next 10 years. And then the cold case squad came in that they had set up, and a new DA said, "I think we got something here." And they went to California, where he was now living, not in Georgia anymore, and arrested him, brought him to trial, and he was convicted. And his appeals have failed, and so he's still in prison. However, there are some who think this guy is innocent because this case is probably the most circumstantial case I've ever seen. And when I say circumstantial, I mean in a way that some circumstantial cases are so obvious, even if they're circumstantial, it's like, well, they may not have DNA, but the guy absolutely 100% did it. This case, The jury did decide he was guilty, but it is a very, very circumstantial case. And I'll show you how weird this kind of case is and what I think happened. And excuse the fly that is now. It's okay. I've had one fly. This one fly, I swear to God, it's just one fly, has been here for the last 2 shows. And I don't see it any other time except when I'm sitting here doing the show. So it's passing by my face to distract me. Anyway, let me tell you where I got some of my information from on this case. But before I start let me just give you the very quick, when it happened and where it happened. Okay. And then I'm going to read you from the actual court documents. David Coffin came from a wealthy family worth $23 million from automotive and aerospace industry. So this is actually a case of 2 guys who are extraordinarily wealthy. This guy's family, millionaires. David was just 41 at the time and an entrepreneur. He was described as lovable and down-to-earth person. He always had women around him because he was good looking and wealthy. And that is for sure. Then on December 11th, 1996, the Atlanta Fire Department responded to a call about a house engulfed in flames. So we're talking 1996, so quite a ways back. The house was a 2-story house. Part of the house was completely burnt, as well as the 2 cars in the driveway. The Atlanta Fire Department also made a shocking discovery. There was a body inside the burnt home. The homicide unit was called in and entered the house after the fire was put out. The victim was found in the kitchen, lying face down. The fire department immediately thought the fire was suspicious. They told the police that most people would be face up if they were trying to crawl out of a burning house. In other words, he wasn't laying in bed where smoke just got him while he's lying on his back and smoke came in, and that did him in before the fire. Most people, if there's a fire in the house, are trying to get out. He's already in the kitchen, so he's not going to probably be on his back. So could it happen? Sure. But most of the time, that's not the way they're found. So they were suspicious, which they should have been. And then the police found a 9mm gun in the rubble. So he had been shot, and later the fire was set. And I'm going to get into all of those details. But I wanted you to know that it was in 1996. There's a bunch of, I want to show you where I got some information from. Let's see, I've got it from, okay, there's this one. I've linked it below, The Real Murders of Atlanta. It's a horrible show. Maybe I should unlink it. It's horrible, so don't even watch that one. It was just dreadful. This one was a 48 Hours Mystery, The Ghost of David Coffin. This was quite decent, and I thought it's not really on YouTube. It's just a promo on YouTube, but I have the link below to a place you can actually see it. And then we have Court TV, which was quite decent on YouTube. So this is pretty decent. So I would go with the 48 Hours ones and this one. I do want to say, the thing that bugs me about so many of these documentaries is, to me, a lot of times when you do a documentary, at least the way documentaries used to be, the idea was that you would do some exploration, in-depth exploration, where you'd have a journalist really trying to get details and information that would be more than a story. But apparently these days they go more for the story, which is the problem. They decide what their story is going to be before they do the show. And then they present whatever information they want to present to support that story. So both of these, all three of the documentaries that I've listed, all three of them say pretty much he is guilty of killing him. That's it. And there's no real exploration into any alternative theories or any of the evidence, which is maybe a little questionable. There's absolutely nothing. So I think there was one comment in one place of an issue that bothered me, and it was like tossed off really quickly. And I'm like, whoa, why didn't you investigate that further? But I guess it didn't support the agenda, which in this particular case was he's guilty. And it's such an interesting story about why he would do it and how he would have done it. It was so interesting, we're not going to bother with anything else. So I'm not saying He didn't do it, and I'm not saying he did do it at this point. I'm just simply saying they went in with a plan, a story, and they aren't investigative journalists. That's a rarity anymore. Mostly you have what they call journalists, but mostly the storytellers. And then they interview a bunch of people, and then they edit the crap out of it and put whatever they want so they can tell the story. So these three are all going to show you the story of how he killed him. All right. But there is an interesting place. There is a Free Scott Davis Innocence Project. I don't actually think it's the Innocence Project. I think they're just using that term because it only seems to be like one person or maybe a couple people who are saying this. He's not getting a lot of support at all from any Innocence Project that I've seen. So, but they're saying he's wrongfully convicted. And if you go over to, and here's another one. There's the freescottdavis.org. Okay, so his dad definitely wants him freed, and also they're millionaires too, so they should be able to afford something. Then, if you go over on YouTube, there's an interesting channel. It's called, there's a couple of them. This one, Scott Davis is Innocent, by a guy named John Richards. I think they're connected. These two channels. 48 Hours Ghost of David Coffin update. Why he's so John watched the 48 Hours show and said, no, that's wrong. This is why he's innocent. And this is another version of it. Georgia's Making a Murderer Scott Davis case. Reasonable doubt about the lies and alibis. Now, there's a lot of information that is connected to these sites, and I will link it so you can check it out. I do think it's pretty funny that the people who think he's innocent are using Making a Murderer as a want to catch your attention. And so what, do they think Stephen Avery was actually innocent? So in my opinion, that's a really bad way to present the case because, okay, I know a lot of people watch the stupid Netflix travesty of Making a Murderer, which was a defense-oriented film, which was so ridiculous because the evidence on him is overwhelming. And we're talking not only circumstantial evidence, but we're talking direct evidence, physical evidence. Absolutely. Stephen Avery is guilty as heck of what he is now convicted of. But, so he's using that one as Stephen Avery is innocent, and so is he. A very bad connection there. Don't do that. If you want to push his innocence, and don't link him up to somebody who is actually guilty. So anyway, so that's that one. Now, so that's where you're going to find some of that information. All right. So, that's probably very true. I suspect the Innocence Project, if the death penalty is at play, or if the case was highly publicized. That's a good point, Mike. The Innocence Project likes to get involved with things that they determine will support their agenda. And so maybe they don't think it supports it. Maybe because he's a rich guy. Maybe because there is no death penalty. But if they were going to support one, I think actually this is one of the better ones that they could push. Maybe. Maybe. So anyway, let's find out more about this case. I'm going to read you now from the court document because at least the court document is just not giving you it's very dry, but it's worthwhile listening to properly. All right. So the problem here was that, all right, no, maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe I should go back to the other one first. Okay. I'm going to go to, this is actually part of the, it's the Ghost of David Coffin, and it's actually it's a transcript thereof. So I'm going to read you some of it. It was the night of December 10th, 1996, when Megan Lee watched firemen struggle to gain control of an inferno at the home of her boyfriend, David Coffin. All right, now who you say is Megan Lee? All right. Well, sorry. Let me fix this right away. It's not Megan Lee. It's Megan, which everybody in the world will pronounce Megan. However, her name is pronounced Megan Lee. And there's a lot of people when the journalist or somebody on the news says Megan Lee, people jump on them and say, gosh, can't they even read their name correctly? It's Megan. It's actually Megan. Go figure. So keep that in mind. So So here is the, by the way, this is the house. House was really burned up. Accelerant was used. Just everything was burned to a crisp. And there's the gun, which is also burned to a crisp. And so they don't have a lot of evidence at the scene as far as evidence they could have used to get anybody. So, but let's see who these people are. All right. Megan. Let me get it right. Megan. All right. This is Megan. And this is Scott Davis, the guy who is accused of killing this guy, David Coffin. You see Megan is with him too. All right. She hooked up with him. They were together after, I forgot, she said something like 5 years, and then they got married, and they were married 2 years, and then she filed for divorce. She wanted to get away from him. Before the divorce was final, they were separated. But before the divorce was final, she found another millionaire, this guy, and hooked up with him. They'd been supposedly together about 6 months when he was murdered. So she is in the middle of this, and there's two different viewpoints. That either that this guy was extremely jealous of him hooking up with her, so he got rid of him so he could get back her, or she's a femme fatale who actually was somehow involved in killing the new boyfriend and blaming it on the old boyfriend. it's a interesting case. I mean, a lot of stuff going on there. All right, so I'm just checking some of your comments here. Oh, really? I've met a Megan who pronounces her name that same way too. You know, in my opinion, don't make life difficult for yourself. And if you're a parent, don't make life difficult for your kid. You know, if it's going to be Megan, Meegan, it'll look stupid, but hey, at least you can pronounce it. You know, it's just. But anyway, so this is the original couple. This is the now couple. All right, so she is now over. She's found out that her new boyfriend's house is on fire. She runs over there, and they said his best. She was talking about she saw a flame shooting out of the roof and everything, and his David's best friend came over, and they're both there. And then they find the body of him in the fire. And so that's how it all starts. However, it's a lot more confusing than that. The police end up interviewing him, and he says that I didn't shoot this guy. And the police went, what? Why would you say that? Because at that time, the police didn't know he'd been shot. Supposedly nobody else knew he'd been shot. So why did he say he'd been shot? And this becomes a whole big issue. And I'll get into the whole big issue of why he said that. Or did he hear that from Megan? And so the two different sides go to town on that. But they became suspicious of him. But that's not the only reason they became suspicious of him. So now I'm going to go to the court document. All right. Because to me, the court document explains a lot about why he became, I could go through the whole story, but I want you to see why he became a suspect. All right. After 2 years of marriage, Davis's wife filed for divorce and moved out of the couple's home. Davis, who did not want to get divorced, threatened to kill anyone who had a sexual relationship with his wife. Davis's wife subsequently began dating David Coffin. And Davis hired a private investigator to follow her. Davis asked the investigator to locate Coffin's home address and telephone number. And after the investigator provided the information to him, Davis said he was going to drive by Coffin's residence the next weekend. That Saturday night, Coffin's house was burglarized and his car was stolen. During the burglary, a call was made from Coffin's home to Davis's home, which is one of the weird things about this case. It's like, why? What was the point of that at all? But it does show you whoever vandalized his house and stole his stuff did know the number for Scott Davis. And we're not talking cell phone days. We're talking 1996. So home lines, landlines. And how would that person who's over at this house know his number? And why would he even call it? And I don't even have a good answer on why I would even call it. So we'll get into that a little bit. I'm going to ask some of your opinions on those things, but I want to get you the layout here. So then, and later that night, so after his place was burglarized, later that night, Davis made repeated calls to his wife's apartment asking if she is sleeping with Coffin. And he definitely did do that. There's not really a question of that. This is what I started with when I had the wrong thing up behind me. I love you. I'm not going to, I'm still in love with you. And then there's this like 30 to 35 phone calls he made to her house to find out whether she was there with Coffin, sleeping with him. So he's a little obsessed, would you say? So now, 2 days after the burglary, Davis called in sick to work, and sometime that night, Coffin was fatally shot in his house. The next morning, Coffin's car and other items stolen from his home were found burning near a MARTA station. Okay, that's very interesting. Found burning near a MARTA station, so I assume that's it's found in an apartment complex, actually. And I looked at that apartment complex to see if where the car was left was like in a really poor apartment complex where you'd hope somebody would steal, you leave the keys, you hope somebody steals it, or you leave some accelerant, you hope somebody just goes to town on it. When I looked up the pictures of the apartment complex that it was in, it was very, very posh, actually, quite nice. But I only saw the pictures from 2024, so it may be that back in 1996 that was another area, and it's been, gentrified, and I have no idea. I couldn't find anything about the original area, but it was found near a MARTA station and it was found burning. A gas can and a bag inside a burning car were identified as being similar to items owned by Davis. So there's actually a gas can inside the burning car. However, I will point this out. Supposedly, he had an alibi. He was at work at the time this fire was noted in the vehicle and the car that was stolen. And that's one of the things they really push. They're like, well, he was at work and there's evidence he was at work. He's got a solid alibi. So how could he have burned up the car? And there was no device they found to say that, it was set off at a certain time. That night, Coffin's house was destroyed by arson and his body was found inside. So there's a burglary. And 2 days after the burglary, that's when Coffin was shot. Hold on a second here. Oh, yeah. Okay, so let me try to get it in order here. So she's at home having with him, with Coffin. And while she's at home with Coffin, somebody goes into Coffin's house, steals a whole bunch of his stuff, he steals the gun that ended up killing him, the car, whole bunch of stuff. And a phone call was made back to Davis's house. All right. So then 2 days later, he was fatally shot in his home. The place wasn't supposedly set on fire at that time he was shot, but the place wasn't set on fire. At least that's what they claim, and I can't find information on how they figured that out. The next morning, his car and other items stolen were found burning at a MARTA station, near a MARTA station. And then that night, Coffin's house was destroyed by arson. His body was found inside. So that's no physical evidence ever linked back to him. That is true. Most of the stuff was burned up in the fire. The stuff that was in the car was also pretty much burned up. But also there was a problem of it disappearing over those 10 years that he was out and about. A whole bunch of mishandling of evidence, and some of it was it was already demolished. It wasn't going to be very useful anyway. But at that point in time, there was nothing physically connecting him to the crime. So now, here's where it gets weird, and here's where the police really suspected him. I'm just going to check up on some of your comments here. Excellent subway and bus system. Thank goodness for MARTA. I do not want to drive in Atlanta. Oh, that's good to know. Okay, so that's a system. If it was found near that station and the station existed, the important thing about that is this. In theory, now supposedly there's evidence that he was at work, and that there's supposedly some evidence he could not have made it up to that location and back to work. And I don't have the evidence in front of me, so I can't say if it's true or it's not true. I would like to see the entire thing, what proof they have of everything. They supposedly had some meetings that he was at, some phone calls or whatever that would put him in the building and not near the MARTA station where this car was found near. I don't know how far it was from his office to that location. How long would it take him if he jumped on there and went up there and then lit the car on fire and came back? I don't know. But there is one interesting thing about the MARTA station, which is very important. Sometimes when a person commits a crime and they want to take the car and dump it someplace, they have a problem. They can't. How do you get from the car that you dumped back to your location? Okay, because now you've dumped the car. You were driving the car. Now you've dumped the car. Now you're standing there going, how do I get home? So there's a few ways you can do that. One is sometimes they will dump the car close to their home, close enough to their home. Let's say, depending on whether they walk a lot or they run a lot, 3 miles away from their home. That means they could get back within an hour walking, get back even faster if they're running. So sometimes that's a methodology. So if whenever a car is dumped too near a person's home, I go, well, they could have just walked home. Next one would be that they're near a subway, some kind of train, or a bus. One of the cases which I talked about, the guy committed his crime by leaving his car near a bus stop, taking the bus to the crime area, committing the crime and taking the bus back and then getting in his car. That way his car wasn't seen there. So that's an interesting one. There's another one where one of my cases, the Anderson Carter case, it was suspected that her fiance committed the crime and that he took her car and drove it to an area of town which you could then blame other people. In other words, they were in an area, he was white, his fiance was white, and the area the car was found in was African American. So the concept being that you drive the car over there so you can blame some black people, make them the killers. Actually, it turned out to be a black guy, but that's a whole other story. Check out my Anderson Carter case. But the thinking was reasonable because I've seen that done before. So you take the car to a place where you want to put the blame, but you make sure it's close enough to the metro so you can get back home. So you jump on the metro and you come back. That's one way when you're dumping a car. The third way is somebody else has a second car. So two of you drive to the location and then you dump the car and jump in the other person's car and they bring you back home. So there's 3 possibilities there. I can't say which one it is. And but also I can't prove when the car was set on fire, they say that no one saw him. Well, okay. And again, I don't know what the area was like. I don't know if he would have stood out looking, if it was an African-American area and he would have stood out and people, oh, that white guy was like leaning over the car and there's no white guys around here. That would be interesting. But the information on that's really vague. There was supposedly some woman saw someone in the area. What the heck does that even mean? So I can't even find information on that. But there's a couple possibilities for him if he were actually involved in incinerating the car. One is the accuracy of him being at work for the entire time is not true, that he could have dumped the car, taken the MARTA back to dumped it, taken the MARTA back, and then on the day he was working, take the MARTA back to the car because he knows where it is, put it on fire, and then return. That is possible. A second thing is possible is that he dumped the car, somebody was with him, somebody gave him a ride back, or he took the MARTA back, and then he had somebody else incinerate the car. In one of the documentaries, there was a quick line thrown out by one of the detectives, prosecutors. Somebody said they thought it could possibly have an accomplice. If that's true, yes, he could have dumped the car or had somebody else dump the car, and then somebody could have just gone by and went, whoosh, hey, run by the car for me and just. So I'll get into the possibilities of him having an accomplice in a little bit, but that's kind of where that stands. Well, let me check this one out. Comment here. Princess says, another case on Netflix called Homicide Los Angeles. It was the Bruce, how am I supposed to pronounce this? is it a Kochlich? Kochlich case. He dumped his wife's car in a bad neighborhood in LA and then walked back 4 miles. There you go. And that sometimes is exactly what happened. That's interesting. If it was a MARTA station, it should have had camera surveillance even in 1996. Very interesting. So far, I haven't heard anything about camera surveillance in this case at all. Nobody saw anything anywhere. No, apparently no camera surveillance of his house, her apartment, and who was coming and going, his house and who was coming and going, and where the car was dumped. Seems to be nothing. So I don't know what Atlanta was like in 1996. So now the police have this guy who is this still husband of her, and he says this thing about him being shot, and he's supposedly not supposed to know that. So that's why they became interested in him. But that's not the only reason. So, and there is question whether he learned that from her, or if he actually knew that, or he learned it from her. And I'll get into that. But let's take a look at the other reason they were looking at him. The same night, Davis made false reports. Now, this is interesting. They're saying false reports. And I find that interesting. This is in the court document. And I can't say that the reports were false. They weren't likely true. But I don't know that they proved 100% they were false. I would say questionable reports to the police about having twice been attacked by an unidentified assailant at his own house. What a quinky dink, his house burns down, and some guy goes in and robs his house and then takes his car and burns his car up and then kills him and burns his house up. But almost the same thing happened to Scott. Can you believe it? So he says that he was attacked by an unidentified assailant at his own house, claiming one attack before and another attack after the fire at Coffin's house. So one of the attacks happened previously to the fire. During his statement to police, he said that he knew Coffin had been shot. Okay. All right. Let me go to what was, okay, hold on a second. I'm missing that thing. Where'd it go? Hold on. Where'd it go? Hold on 1 second. I want the part about, where'd they, are we kidding me? Hold on. It's the whole story about what happened at his house, which is what's fascinating. And it somehow disappeared out of that one. Okay, it must be in a different one. And I'm going to have to figure out where it went to. Okay. It's in this one, maybe. All right. No, maybe it's the same one. Hold on a sec. Okay, here we go. The same evening, Davis made calls to the police. The same evening, the fire of his house. Before the discovery of the fire and Coffin's body, Davis reported that an intruder had entered his home and sprayed him with mace. Okay, so this is before he was discovered. Okay, he says, somebody came into I found him out. It was actually some area right outside the house, some storage area. He entered there and sprayed him with mace. He's all in black. He's got a black mask. He's all in black, and he sprays him in the face with mace. Davis told the responding officer that his attacker put a gun to his head and warned him to leave Megan alone. And by the way, he said Megan, not Megan. Okay, keep that in mind. He didn't say leave Megan alone. He said leave Megan alone. And then after a failed attempt to steal his car, the attacker fled on foot and jumped over his backyard fence. Davis called the police a second time to report that a gas can, tools, and clothing were missing from his home after the alleged attack. So now do you see the similarities here? So he has stuff stolen from his house, including his car, and he's saying someone tried to steal my car out of my house and stole a gas can, which ended up in his car. All right. Then he made a third emergency call a few hours after the firefighters were dispatched to the fire over here. with his last call, he said he had awakened to find flames on his back patio. Okay, so now we're back here. So, he awakened, which I kind of find interesting because he's had a tumultuous evening. He's been attacked. Guys sprayed him with mace, and he's called the police. And then there's this weird claim he makes later on that he goes out to the store to buy mace. After that, he actually tries to drive out and buy mace because now he feels like he needs some mace. It's like, what? I'm wondering whether he needed to do that because he was afraid he was seen buying mace in a store and he wanted somebody to recollect. If anybody recollected him, some guy buying mace, he could say it was me later. I don't know, but that seems a little odd that you would go out and buy mace. So to protect yourself from the guy with mace. I mean, and then of course your face is burning, and then you jump in a shower and try to get that off of you, but you just fall right asleep. Well, that's useful. So anyway, after a failed attempt to steal his car, he fled and jumped over the back fence. Okay, so that's how this guy gets out. All right. So after he calls the police and tells them all this happened and that the gas can and tools and clothing were missing, he calls a third time. He said that he had awakened to find flames on his back porch, on his back patio. A patio, not even a porch. It's not wood. It's stone. They found flames on his back patio and a person in a ski mask with a handgun. He told responding officers that he had fired a shotgun at the masked person who had shot back and fled over the back fence. And then he extinguished the fire with a garden hose. So now we got the fire. He's also got the fire here. You see the car that the guy wanted to steal, the stolen gas can, and now the fire. So both of these crimes are so similar, you see. And the other similar thing is that while his place is being burglarized, somebody called his house. And the guy who came to his house said, what did he say? Leave Megan alone, but not Megan. So some people are really upset, especially this one fellow that's has these innocence things, that the police would have the indecency to even suspect him. I mean, if the police didn't suspect him, there's something wrong with the police. I mean, because there's no way a detective is not going to say, this is really suspicious. And they went over there, and one of the things he said was that they looked for the bullet, and the guy, they found the shotgun shell. So he did fire the shotgun like 5 times. But he said the guy shot at him with a gun, a smaller gun, and they couldn't find any bullet anyplace. And he said, well, it's because he shot over my head. And it's like, how would you know that? Supposedly, lady says he saw a flash. Well, I'm pretty sure and he thought he heard the bullet going by. I'm pretty sure you can't hear that. And then he went later and said, oh, maybe it was just an echo. So he's got an explanation for everything. There was a lady next door who said she only heard 5 shots and none of them they all sounded like shotgun. She says, I know guns. The other side of him is the fellow that is his friend. And his friend said he heard that smaller gunshot. Now, the friend is going to come to play into this whole case. And I really wonder if he could be an accomplice. I can't say he was, but if you're going to have an accomplice, he'd be the one. But right now what we got is they're really suspicious for a really good reason. Okay, the gun, of course, the gun that shot him was his own gun, but was found at the crime scene all burnt up. They never found any of his stuff with him. Any of the stuff that was taken was not with him. So there's no physical evidence from one place going to the other place. A lot of it was burnt up, and God knows where the rest of it went to, depending on who stole it, if you want to go there. He may have wanted to use the story to cover any evidence. Yes, maybe that's a good point. Like, since if he was involved in burning up his house, he might have stuff on him that looks like accelerant, soot, or whatever. And if you can say, hey, a guy did that to my house, Well, then you can't say that he got that from here because it happened at his house too. Yes, that's a very good point. So it seemed like he was concocting stories, and what they were saying is that, the police are saying, hey, that's false. I mean, we don't buy that story at all. So Rick Chambers is a detective, and Marshall Walker, I'm not sure how you pronounce that guy's name, went to the scene and learned about David's emergency calls and his connection to Megan and Coffin. And so he told them all the stuff, and they transported him to the homicide office to give a statement. As his story progressed, they became more suspicious, and they gave him Miranda rights. And later, the autopsy proved that Coffin had been shot. So this is what's interesting, that here's one of the confusing things which bugs the heck out of me, and I would like to see information on this, because we have the whole issue of, did he say to the police that Coffin was shot before anybody knew, or did he get that information from her? If he got that information from her, then how did she know? Okay, so there's no proof that Coffin was shot on the night that was found dead, because his body was completely burned up. But there was a gun near him or under him. He was just right there. There was a gun. One could assume he was shot. Now, I don't know whether in the craziness that was going on, whether a firefighter might have seen the gun, might have said somewhere along the way, hey, this guy was shot, because a gun was there. Even though the autopsy hadn't been done and wasn't proof he was shot, there was still a gun at the scene. Now, maybe, I don't know when they saw the gun at the scene. I don't know. But you have a ton of people coming and going. You've got the firefighters, you got the detectives. Anybody could have said anything while Megan was outside. She might have heard it, and in the midst of everything that's in her head, she might have said to him he was shot, and therefore he didn't come up with that idea before anybody knew anything. That is possible. It is also possible that. So there's a whole thing. The guy that thinks this guy's innocent has a whole bunch of things on his site, and I'll run it through you just so you can understand this part of it. So Megan is guilty. She should be a suspect. All right. There's no way the Janakovas, as her friend, she called them, could have known in real time that first night the importance of the 12:08 a.m. call. Hold on, maybe I'm going backwards here. Hold on a second. Sorry, let me start over here. Okay, Megan tells Scott, David is dead, he was shot. That's what Scott told the detectives. She stated that Coffin was shot in the head. Now, the shot in the head is interesting. 12:08 a.m. That's supposedly when she said that. Okay. And supposedly her friends wrote this down. They were so shocked they wrote a note. A message from 12:08 a.m. That she said he was shot in the head. And that all happened at 12:08 a.m. before she called Scott. Now, I don't know about that note. Here's where you start getting information. You don't know how anything is valid. That note is the guy who's got that website is claiming that the note was written at the time the phone call was made. I don't have proof of that. That may be something that later on, police were talking to him and said, can you remember anything? Yes, write down anything you remember. Could have happened then. I don't know. In court, the couple was they were interrogated in court, questioned in court, and the husband says that 12:08 was not true. That was the first phone call. She made a phone call to them, and then she called Scott, because at that point in time she didn't suspect Scott. She called Scott because he'd been calling her, so she called Scott and said, "This is what's happened," and then she called the other people again, and it was the second phone call that she said he'd been shot. And she didn't get that information to Scott. She said she didn't give the information to Scott. She said she didn't know then. Why? And the later phone call, I don't know how that information would have come about. So the question here, which is very confusing and convoluted, is if either one of these people knew that he was shot in the head before they could have heard it from any other place, then it would seem like one of them was involved in the crime, to know that. So when the police heard it from him, they did think he was involved in the crime, along with a crazy story he just told about the similar attack at his house. I mean, they were like honed in on him. Look, You're obsessed over your wife. You called her a ton of times. You hired a private investigator to find out where he lived and said he was going to do something. And it seems like he did something. And he's got this phony baloney story, and he says he was shot in the head. So, hey, that's our guy. So, but what if you take away the shot in the head thing, or he was shot. Now, the shot in the head thing, I'm trying to see whether shot in the head. I don't know when if they didn't know that till the autopsy is done, nobody knew that the first night. So that's one of the things that just make you go, how would anybody know that? Now, it is possible, again, that a firefighter or detective said something. Sometimes what you have are people who guess stuff, and then they open their mouths and say those things that they guess. They go in and go, oh man, we found this guy and he's dead, and there's a gun right next to him. He got shot in the head. And they say something to somebody, and they're out there, oh, he was shot in the head, and then the fire was set. I don't know. So it'll always remain a question, because it's not real clear about whether she actually stated that he was shot in the head, or that he stated that he was shot in the head. Which one of them actually stated it first is very unclear. And if either one of them stated it first, where do they get the information from? Unless they committed the crime. Okay. So that is very confusing. Now, let's see. Here's an interesting problem. So, any rate, they're interviewed, and they tell Davis he's free to go home. And so on Thursday, December 12th, Davis told Gatley, that's that next door neighbor I talked to you about, the one that said he heard the shot of the attacker's gun in the backyard. He told Gatley that they needed to get their story straight, and asked Gatley to tell the police he had seen him at the Australian Body Works gym on December 9th, the night the two had exchanged vehicles. They exchanged vehicles. He asked his buddy if he could take his car, and he wanted to take his buddy's car, supposedly to move some stuff that wouldn't fit in his car. A similar car that he had. Now, why that has any meaning, I don't know. But they did exchange cars. But he wanted him to claim, his friend to claim he had actually been to the gym. Since his car was at the gym, he wanted to claim to the police that he was also at the gym. And this guy said no, he wasn't going to do that. He wasn't going to say he was at the gym. So that makes Gatley, the next door neighbor, look very innocent, that he's like, hey, I'm not going to lie for you, dude. You weren't there. You borrowed my car. The rest of it's on you. But I'm not going to get myself in trouble, probably because there's no evidence that he was at the gym, and Gatley is not. It's like, hey, I'm not doing that. All right. So during the time, so let's see how, so it gets a little confusing here. There's another issue that he supposedly had an alibi for the time that, remember, she's over at his house. No, sorry, he's over at her house for the night. And when the burglary goes down, he supposedly has an alibi. Now, that alibi is never told to the police at the time. It's told only in court. And it is told by his daddy. His daddy is in court now. That's Dave Davis, his father. This gets really crazy. So Dave Davis, his father, says he couldn't have committed that because he was at my house with his mom and me bringing back Christmas decorations. He couldn't have done it. He was with me. And they asked him why he didn't tell them, why didn't ever tell the police that? And he goes, no one asked me. Now, so your son is being accused of a burglary, but you don't want to bother to tell the police at the time that he had an alibi. Really? That's kind of unbelievable. Now, the later claim is that he didn't want to say exactly what time because he was afraid that the police might move the time to a different time of the burglary. In other words, if he was at that house for this hour, they would then move the burglary to before or after the time he was at the house. So therefore, he didn't want to give up that information until they heard exactly when the burglary was. And then he finally found out. And then 10 years later in court, he says, that's when my son was at my house. Now you want to buy that one? Okay. Now, can we believe this guy? You know, who is this guy? This is absolutely fascinating. This guy is Dr. Dave Davis. You see him? Yes, that's Dr. Dave Davis. Who's Dr. Dave Davis? Forensic psychiatrist breaks down why the notebook is important in discovering Brian Laundrie's remains. And here he is on Fox 5 down in Atlanta. And he's a forensic psychiatrist, and he's being called a criminal profiler. So, hold on a second. He says, so he gives this alibi and a terrible story to go with. Now, he says that his son, the golden boy, his son, now remember, this guy's very, very wealthy, and his son got the best life. And he said he's never ever given a problem, never been violent, never anything. This guy's the greatest guy ever. And then, so he says there's no way he would have ever committed this crime. This is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. However, and he doesn't think he has any kind of personality disorder, any kind of issues. Now, mind you, this guy's a criminal profiler, a forensic psychiatrist, works with people all the time. This guy is obsessed with her. Now, the story she gives, and I don't know if it's true, that's her story, that when they were dating, there were issues, controlling kind of issues, and she had issues. They sort of broke up, got back together. Now, mind you, when he was younger, he had a great life and a lot of money. I'm not saying she's a gold digger, but that makes the guy very attractive, you know. So she's found this guy who's fairly handsome and well connected in the community, big, huge house, everything nice. And he's got everything, and they had this gorgeous wedding. It's even in magazines and everything. It's a gorgeous wedding. Why, if she had issues before she married him, why would you think she would marry him? Anyway, well, I can tell you why. A number of reasons. One is that, when you're younger and you found somebody, you think this is the person, you keep trying to give excuses for why they behave the way they do. And you think they're going to mature. Or when you get married, they'll change for the better, that kind of crap. And so she went ahead and married him. 2 years into the marriage, she's very unhappy. She said, it's an interesting thing she said about him. She said that once he got married, he lost interest in her. Now, supposedly, there's claims that he had affairs, and the other side claims she had affairs. Now, I'm not going to get into all that, but she was saying that kind of lost interest. Like he got his prize, and now he liked the chase, and he got the prize, and now he's like bored. And that does happen to certain men and women. They get there where they know it's fun while you're free, and then when you get married, real life sets in, and you're like, I'm not so thrilled anymore. Is that absolutely true? I don't know. But whatever reasons, she became unhappy in the marriage and she wanted out after 2 years. Now, there's a whole bunch of stuff in the divorce. It didn't seem like she was going to make a fortune in the divorce. So I don't know that was, some people say, well, she was just, married him, then get divorced and get the money, right? I don't know. I can't find any evidence that is actually a big issue. But meanwhile, after they were already separated, she runs into this guy who's even richer than this guy. Now, maybe she has a thing for rich guys. And apparently she's attractive and very attractive to them. So they're choosing her just like she's choosing them. And now she's got this guy. Supposedly, according to his own father, he said, I'm going to bring her by. I found the one. Essentially, he thought he had found the right girl. Now, there's claims that he was cheating on her, and that's why she killed him. Everybody's cheating on everybody. But he supposedly had just told his father he thinks he found the right girl. So it seems a little odd that early in their relationship, he feels the need to cheat on her and then tell his father he's found the right one. The father eventually met her and really liked her. This was after he was murdered. He finally met her and thought, I like her a lot. She's now, by the way, after this whole thing went down, she freaked out. She moved away. I think it was first to Minneapolis, and then she moved to Australia. So she's now an Australian citizen. She's married and has 2 children. She speaks in court and all these the different things. And I see, you see tears come out of her eyes. A lot of people think they're fake. I didn't see that. I really think that is she conniving? Is she is she a femme fatale? when she looks at his picture, she kind of falls apart, and she falls apart with the whole thought of everything. And she does cry, but I thought in a very realistic way. So as a profile, I didn't see it as fake. I think she really liked this guy. Maybe this was going to be the love of her life, and he got killed, and she feels responsible for his death. In the beginning, she didn't want to believe that Scott was involved. Who would want to believe that? You're like, I found the right guy, and this guy would be fine except for my stupid husband who ends up killing him. I'm responsible for his death then. So in the beginning, she's like, no, there's no way. And then later on, when she came back from Australia to testify 10 years later, she's like, I'm here to testify. Because she's like, yeah, I think he did it, and I think he deserves justice. Now, some people think she's faking it, and she's involved somehow in his death, and he is completely innocent. So now the evidence issue is problematic in the sense that, yes, they lost a whole bunch of evidence over this 10 years, a lot of bad handling of stuff. He appealed over the evidence issue and lost. They said, in spite of everything, that evidence wasn't going to amount to anything. So it really was inconsequential in this whole thing. You were found guilty by all of your behaviors and those things. The card thing was never quite explained. I think that's his best shot. There were supposedly a couple of prints on the card that were neither his nor hers, and then they lost a fingerprint card. That's problematic. But it's beautiful Porsche sitting in a parking lot. Gorgeous. A lot of people can come up and touch that car. So I'm not entirely impressed that the killer put his hands on the car and then burn it up. Some other killer. I mean, the killer that killed him. Because if you're going to say that he didn't do it and the guy who did do it was the one who burned up the car, who is that person? So we come down to this. Either he has an accomplice, or he either did it alone or has an accomplice, or she was involved, but she had to have an accomplice. All right, let's go to him. If he I don't believe his alibis with his daddy. He had every possibility of going to his house and stealing the crap out, stealing the stuff. He could have taken the car, dumped it, and taken the martyr back. I don't think there's absolute proof that he couldn't have committed that alone. I don't have a problem with him actually committing the shooting alone either, or setting the fire either. I don't have a problem with any of those things that he could have done alone. The phone call back to his house. Why would anybody do that? I never heard anything about him answering the phone, so he obviously wasn't there. So he wasn't clearly said there would be some evidence that he answered the phone. He never said he answered the phone, so he clearly was not there. Where the hell was he when the place was being robbed? Oh yes, at his daddy's house. That's right, with Christmas ornaments. But why did the person call to his house? To make it look like somebody else was there, trying to mock him, like, hey, I guess what? I just, well, somebody will say, well, maybe it's then more obvious that she was involved. Now, she couldn't have made the phone call because she was actually not there. She was actually at her home. He was supposedly at her home, if the timing is right. So she couldn't have made the phone call. He theoretically could have made the phone call. So then it would have to be an accomplice who made the phone call. So somebody who was taking his stuff, still in the car, then called his home. What? Somebody help me out here. I can't come up with that phone call. Somebody come out with a phone call issue. Now, a buddy involved in the crime. This is a possibility. The guy who's given him a car, the guy who he asked to lie for him about his alibi, could he be involved? Yes. In what way? I don't know. The most way I can think of is that he might have had something to do with the car being burned up. Like, hey, dude, when you're out and about that day, I've already soaked the car with some car stuff. That's a whole bunch of it. Stuff. Just drive by and check a a match in there. Maybe. Um, don't know. Um, okay, maybe he hired someone to do the home burglary, hence the phone call. Okay, Don, I'm going to call you when it's over. Yes, that is possible. So even if he's not home, the whole point will be, if Daddy's telling the truth and he went there to do the Christmas ornament stuff, it's like, I'm going to leave my house and I'm going to get an alibi, and then I want you to go there and steal the stuff, and then you're going to call my house, and I'm not going to be there. So just call my house, although I won't know you called. That still doesn't really work for me. Yeah. This is a good point. Mike has got a good point. Scott has money, and accomplice should be considered. Yes, he does have money. So he could definitely, you could even, as far as the car thing goes, you could go to some kid and you could say, okay, I'm going to give you this money and a lighter. Just chuck it in the car and walk away. You could do that, or just light the thing up. It'll be fun. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, but it could be, that's possibly true. The call was a stupid mistake. In what way? Because I mean, this is the problem. I don't know what the stupid mistake. Why would you bother with a phone call, no matter who you were? What's the point? I mean, I can't even come up with a really good reason for the phone call. I mean, if he's committing the crime, he could just call back to his house to pretend that somebody called. Of course, he has already come up with the guys come and said, don't mess with Megan. No, he said Megan because the guy didn't know her real name. So he hired somebody. He hired somebody, or she hired somebody, to go over and scare him and say, don't mess with Megan, because they gave the guy the instructions and he forgot her name was Megan because it's weird. So, okay, they hired somebody to go scare him on the night he was killed. So he goes over to scare him and sprays him and then says, don't mess with Megan. And then after this, they had the same guy that hired to scare him, then comes back and kills him. Oh, no, he's already dead. He just comes back to set the house on fire. And then go back and set his house on fire. It's a very convoluted. Why she would even, the problem over here is there's zero reason that she would want to kill him. She was in good with him. This was possibly her next future husband. This guy's money bags. She hit the jackpot with him. He's even better than him. He was way better than him. He had more money, more charisma, better looks, everything. She hit the jackpot. She's not going to give that up if she's a gold digger, if you want to put that label on her. Why would she give that up? Why is she going to kill him? Oh, she found out he cheated on her. So she's going to go through an elaborate thing now to get rid of both of them. This is the kind of the theory. She's going to get rid of both of them. So she hired somebody to rob him, rob him while they were together. So it looked like he maybe did it. And that's why they called his house to say, and then he's killed. And then this whole thing is set up so that and this completely crazy thing over at his house, so he looks connected to that. Wow, good job. Wow, femme fatale. She's brilliant. She managed to wipe out her future hire a guy with what money I do not know, because for somebody to do all of that crap, that's a lot of crap to do. And then to blame it on her ex so she could be free of him and get revenge on him. I can't make that work. Oh, Lord. Let the guy out of prison. We can all move on. No, not necessarily, because is there proof? I have no idea, Siobhan. The problem is with these shows and with a lot of the information out here is very scarce. Everybody's supposedly cheating on everybody. He's supposedly out dating. She was dating after they separated. She finds him, then supposedly he's cheating on her and she's cheating on him. And everybody's cheating on everybody. I don't know. People can claim anything they want. And so you have to be very careful of that. Because you don't know if it's true or not. You just do not know. And when people, they can selectively pick things to make somebody look very guilty. And so I cannot say whatever. Whatever the reason for the call does connect Scott somehow. This is a great point, Allison. Yes. All right. The call from his house to his house means there is a connection between these two or the two crimes. So it's not, if he were just killed, his stuff was stolen. Nobody knew who did it. And then he was killed and nobody knew who did it. Yes. You could say somebody was just targeting him for whatever reasons. He was into drugs, gambling, whatever. Somebody was targeting him. But the fact that somebody called from his house to here is very suspicious. Now, if it was somebody, it's very interesting. The guy who's trying to get him out of prison, says that he's not saying Megan committed the crime, but she knows something. So she didn't commit the crime. Then somebody else she knows committed the crime. In other words, a hired gun, essentially. But I say it's really hard to come up with a good reason why he's being killed outside of him wanting to get. This guy was very upset, had hired the private investigator, found out where he lived. And right after he found out where he lived and said he wanted to do something, this guy gets burgled, and then he gets killed. So whoever did do the burglar stuff did call over to his house. So this is not a complete stranger. This would be impossible. It's not a complete stranger. Also, because the guy who supposedly attacked him said, "Stay away from Megan." Again, she's back in the picture. So there's two things that connect this crime and this. So it cannot be a complete stranger. That's impossible. So he wasn't killed by somebody who had nothing to do with him. That's just no, or anything to do with her. It's just whatever happened here had to do with here. And so either, since he's dead and probably did not plan his own murder, either she's a femme fatale who wanted to kill everybody, or screw everybody around her. This could be a Perry Mason, I guess, or it's him. And if you look at the two sides of the equation, she had no reason to kill the guy she was with. And could she have wanted to pin it on him? Sure. I mean, she could, theoretically, if he were killed by a complete stranger, she could try to say, oh, he did it. But the fact that he himself received a phone call during the time of the burglary, he himself said, a guy said, don't stay away from Megan. He himself has put himself into this whole scenario. And then everything that happens over here is what happened over here. No stranger's going to do that. Even if it was a total stranger, she's like, oh, I'm just going to pin it on him. She would be the luckiest ever to be able to, oh my God, can you believe it? This guy that did this somehow found my boyfriend, my husband. He killed my boyfriend for whatever weird reasons he had, gambling, drugs. But after he killed my boyfriend, for whatever reasons, he did the exact same thing to my husband. How lucky can I get? No. So it's impossible. So I can't come up with anything on this side that says she had any reason to murder. Could she want to say, take him down? Sure. But again, she'd have to be incredibly lucky to have the guy who did this do that. So goes back over here. The only logical person, and that's what the police and the jury believe, that would have been involved is this guy. Because he did have an obsession with her. He made comments that he wanted to do something to him with that private investigator. And right after that, this guy ends up burgled and dead. He does the obsessive thing to her phone and all that stuff, making phone call after phone call after phone. That's obsession. And Daddy, you're a forensic pathologist, a psychiatrist, a criminal profiler, and you don't understand your son is obsessed. You're not very good at your job. So your son was obsessed, and every piece of evidence, every piece of behavioral evidence, and the claims that he made point to him being involved in the death of David Coffin. Are there those curious things that I cannot answer? Yes. The issue of when everybody knew he was shot in the head, and two, how was the car set on fire? Those are the two major ones. The rest of it all points to him. And I have been unable to get the information enough to determine if I had enough information, I could determine how that car ended up setting on fire when he was supposedly at work, and how the information about him being shot in the head came to fruition. I just don't know. But other than that, the whole scenarios that he had this guy twice attack him at his house, nobody does that. This is I want to point that out. That's not how people behave. The guy's attacking him, stealing his stuff, but also saying, "Oh, leave Megan alone. Leave Megan alone." The two things don't go together. If somebody's coming over there to say, "Leave Megan alone," let's say they hired somebody to just go over there and scare him because they're tired of him calling her and calling her and calling her. They just want to scare him off. The guy's just going to come over there and say, "Leave Megan alone. I'm going to beat you up." That's what they would do. They're not going to also steal stuff. What's the heck? You don't add theft on top of it. And once he said, "Leave Megan alone," or Megan alone, Megan as he said it, he's not going to come back later on and set fire to his house. And what? I mean, that's just that all stuff is nonsense. So the kind of crimes he's describing don't make sense. And his behaviors don't make sense. So do I think he is guilty? Yes, I do. Do I think there are some issues? Yes. Obviously, the handling of the evidence could be better. I don't know why it was handled poorly. I don't know if it's because most of it was burned up, but the few things that weren't burned up, they could have done a better job. But 10 years went by, maybe they thought the case was dead in the water. I don't know. Or it's just a bunch of incompetent people. I don't think anybody was trying to hide anything. I don't think the police were trying to hide that they knew who did it and it wasn't him. No. And some people will say that his own dad, let's see which one. Yeah, his own dad got rid of the evidence to protect him. It's like, that makes no sense either. So do I think wasn't handled great? Yes, but the appeals court dealt with that. They said they had no bearing in reality on the jury's decision. So that's why they found him guilty, because they couldn't get past his hiring of the private investigator and the things he said and the alibis he tried to get people to give him. And when you go to this other guy's site, he will say, it's just a pretty convincing. He can be kind of convincing, you know what I mean? If you read his site, you go, yeah, maybe. He goes, this guy was scared to death. He said, they're trying to pin it on me. He's terrified. So he's asking, please give me an alibi because I'm terrified. Yeah, you can always use it. I was scared, therefore I acted in such a way. But I can't get past the, when I talk about the red flag things in cases, I can't get past what they call a false police report twice. Because I don't believe anybody came in and did that to him. I believe he probably sprayed himself in the face with that mace that he bought himself to make it look like he was attacked. I can't buy that anybody had any reason to come and try to scare him off of Megan, and then came and behaved in that way to do so. It makes no sense. And it happened to just match everything over here. So if they had hired somebody to scare him, why would that same guy kill him? I mean, that kind of kills the whole point. I mean, if they want to be free of him so they can have a peaceful life, so that Megan can now, they can be boyfriend, girlfriend, or get married, and she can be free of this pain in the butt, why then would he end up dead? Defeats the whole purpose. So did the jury end up with the right decision? I think so. I do wish I had answers to those other things. And if I were conducting an actual documentary, if I were an investigative journalist, I'd want those answers. I want them clear. I would like to see it. I found as many court documents as I could. I couldn't find the whole trial. So I couldn't find everything. I would like to know specifically about the car issue and specifically about the shooting issue. I mean, he was shot in the head issue. I would like to know more about that. But if I were doing a full-on paid documentary, I'd like to know those things. But that anybody else killed him makes no sense whatsoever. And so those are my thoughts. So that's it. Okay. Laura said, just let her go, dude. She ain't worth it. Find somebody who really cares about you. Well, there's that too. When people get obsessed, I will say this. When you've been with somebody for a while, they become your life. It's very difficult. I think people make it too easy sounding, just say, oh, never let me go find somebody else. It's not like that. It's like that person becomes, a part of you, and you're part of your existence. And when that person they're disappearing on you, or they're losing interest in you, it's a really difficult thing. And I get that, but I don't know that was his issue. According to her, his issue wasn't that he was a great husband and loved her and she just lost interest. Her point was that he was not a great husband and he lost interest in her, which is why she wanted out, because she's like, I married you and it didn't turn out to be a very good marriage. So I wanted to get away. And then when I wanted to get away, then he wanted me back. That's what she's claiming. But if that's true, sometimes people's, it's the possession that's more important than the actual relationship. The possession, having somebody dump you is an affront to your ego. It's like, how dare you? And you're mine, and you're supposed to want to be with me, and then you dump me. I can't handle that. You have to get you back, because either it's because you have no right to leave, or it's that you have your insult to me is too much. So either way, I'm going to get you back. So therefore, I can prove myself to be worthy, and secondly, that you had no, you're mine. So people, it's very complex. Now, if a person has a personality disorder, which I would guess if he went ahead and actually committed this crime, he did have a personality disorder that his forensic daddy, as criminal profiler daddy, doesn't seem to understand. It seems a little odd. Now, one of the things he did, which is interesting, he moved to California, and he decided to run for governor. And now I know if you were innocent of the crime and you wanted to move on in life, I get that you don't want anything to hold you back. But maybe running for governor is not the thing to do. And so somebody ratted him out, and then of course he wasn't going to become governor. But that's a little, go live your life quietly. Don't do something stupid like that. But then again, maybe that's this whole problem. I don't say it, Pat. I don't know. I don't have enough information on him. But yes, usually if a person gets to this level, yes, it is an example of psychopathy. It is. Because no matter what, to actually commit. Now there's a theory on this. Okay, let me take this back. There is a theory that the intention wasn't to kill him. The intention was to confront him and threaten him away from her. that after the burglary and the possession of the gun, that he came back and threatened him and said, leave Megan alone. She's mine. She's my wife. You have no business having sex with her. And there was a argument, maybe even a grappling, and he was shot. I don't know where he was shot in the head. Couldn't find that out. Was he shot in the back of the head? That's a different thing than being shot in the front of the head. I don't know where that information is. I don't know why they aren't talking about that. I can't find that autopsy thing. So maybe if you find that, let me know. Maybe I just did a crappy research job, but there's a difference. If somebody's grappling with a gun and they end up pulling the trigger and get shot in the forehead, it's possible it wasn't intentional. If the person's shot in the back of the head, obviously it is. So it's possible that he went to scare him and it didn't work and he got killed. And he's like, oh, holy crap, now what do I do? So he's trying to runs away, and then he goes back to cover it up. So there's a possibility that it wasn't intentional, it wasn't premeditated. Although he did have the ideation in his head, which is what he told the private investigator too. People rarely do anything, if ever, if they don't have the ideation already in their head, because it's not something they can do. I go over and over this because I think it's so important. If you had the ideation, if you came home and found your significant other with your best friend in your bed, what would you do? And if right now you're saying, I would kill them, please leave my channel immediately because you're a psychopath. Because to even think of murdering like that is not normal. If you say, I would shriek and yell, I would throw things, I might even punch one of them, punch him especially. I'd do that. That you can see the rage would go there. But if you think you're going to go get your gun and blow them away, you have that ideation in your head. It's concerning because that's way past, because it's not self-defense. That's just anger. Now, if I ask you that same question, say you come into a room and you see a 30-year-old man raping your 3-year-old daughter, what would you do? And you tell me you get your gun and blow him away. I'm okay with that. Totally okay with that. That's not psychopathy. So the ideation is the important thing. Why do you have the ideation? If the ideation is to save lives, that's one thing. The ideation is because I'm pissed off and you deserve to die because I'm upset. Well, if you come home and find your significant other in bed with your best friend, you're going to be upset. You're going to be enraged. There's no question about it. Why wouldn't you be? But that doesn't mean you go to the level of homicide, regardless. Now, so therefore, it's possible if he wasn't actually planning to kill him and he went over there to threaten him because he was angry that he's still married to her. And I've always said to people, I have said, please get your divorce before you fool around. Not because it's ethical and moral, in my opinion. But, sometimes people like, hey, I've tried this divorce is going on so freaking long that I'm not going to sit on the sidelines for the next 4 years. Kind of understand that too. So if the marriage is over, and there's no hope of getting back, okay, I'm going to argue that one. So she thought it was over, and she's telling him, I'm never coming back to you. And he should have let it go at that point. But if he didn't let it go and he wants to go and tell this guy, stay away from my wife. What he's saying the guy said to him, stay away from me, Megan. That's what he probably said to him. Stay away from Megan. Stay away from Megan. She's still my wife. So I can imagine him going over there and threatening him with his own gun. And first of all, why would he? Let me answer this. Why would he burgle the place? If he thought that he was over with her, having sex with her, he went in and took away his toys. You took away my toy. I'm taking away your toys. I'm taking your guns. I'm taking this. I'm taking that. I'm taking your cute little Porsche. Now, somebody said when the Porsche was burned up, they said that no guy would burn up a really nice antique, what do you want to call that? Porsche, it's gorgeous. It's a classic. No guy would do that because he loved the car. He loved that car. I'm so impressed with that car, he wouldn't hurt the car. But a woman would hurt the car in a heartbeat. I disagree. I sort of understand that. Yeah, the woman would have less connection to probably a car, but if he wanted to hurt him, really hurt him, you're messing with something that I love. I'm going to mess with something that you love. Watch. I'm going to take your car away. I'm going to burn that sucker up. I can see that type of thinking. So he takes away his toys, burns up his toys, and goes and says, "Stay away from my lady." And they have an argument, and something ensues. He ends up dead, and he's like, "Oh crap! I did want to kill him, but hey, I wasn't really going to kill him, but I did kill him, and now I got to cover everything up." So I'm going to pretend somebody did the same thing to me. They came to me and said, "Don't mess with Megan. Stay away from Megan." Look, they said it to me too, which makes it's ridiculous when you think about it, because no guy's really going to say it to both of them. But what happens here is interesting. A lot of times when you're trying to come up with a story, you come up with a story that is actually true. If you're trying to come up with a name, for example, if I'm trying to say right now, I want to come up with a name. I'm not Pat Brown. I'm Megan, because the last name I think of is Megan, because I'm talking about Megan. Oh no, I'm talking about Megan. I can't say me. I hate that name. Sorry, Megan. Megan. I hate the name Megan. I think it's horrible. Just whoever did that to you should have just changed it and made it Megan, because you look like a lovely Megan. But anyway, so if somebody says, "Give me a fake name," the first thing that comes to my mind is Megan or Megan, because that's what's in my head. So when you're coming up with a story, you come up with a story that's closest to you. So if he's over there threatening him, stay away from Megan. When he reenacts this story at his house, what's happening over here, he's reenacting what happened over here. It's almost an identical thing. Take your toys, take your car, stay away from Megan. Over here, I took some of your stuff. I've tried to take your car, stay away from Megan. It's just a repeat. And that's why I think he's guilty as hell. But I don't know that it was premeditated. It could be half premeditated. Again, I think it's an ideation that was already in his head, but I don't know whether it was grappling for the gun or he shot him in the back of the head. I don't know. Is she a psychopath? Well, again, killing people is usually on the psychopathic end of the spectrum. Could he be just a high-level narcissist who's always had his way? Yeah. Sorry. A second. I've always said there's a continuum, right? Healthy narcissism, psychopathy. It's just I don't put these little absolute labels on like the DSMV does, because I hate them. I think they're stupid. I think you just it's more gray areas, but it goes toward one end. When you get to the point of zero empathy, then you're probably up to the psychopath end. How was he a bad guy? Now, it's true she wasn't totally divorced yet, so I guess you can put that label on him. Bad guy. He was messing with a woman who was still married, and I recommend it to him against that. I do. I've never ever, had a relationship, a romantic relationship with a married man. I don't care how many. You better prove to me. The only way I'd do that, especially at my age, would be if I'm going to have a romantic relationship with you and you're still married, you better have a damn good explanation why you're still married. It could be, let's say your wife was in a coma for the last 10 years, or your wife had Alzheimer's, and you go every week, you go to the facility and you spend time with her and you bring her lunch, and she has no idea who the hell you are. And you've lived this way for years, and you're lonely. You care about her, but there's nothing you can do because she's not really her anymore. I might say, look, I'm not going to say you got to wait 10 more years until she passes away. Hey, I might say that. I don't know. I haven't been there. I don't have that in my history. I have had a good friend, and he's a good friend. He's a friend now who I knew for 10 years, and his wife was alive, and we did not have a romantic relationship. And if he ever tried one, I would have said no. His wife died, and about a year after he started going toward a romantic relationship. I considered the possibility. Turned out we weren't suited for each other that way. So now we're just friends. But there's no way I was going to mess with this guy because he's married. And so, yes, should he have messed with her when she was still married? Wise not to. But again, most people aren't the way I think. They're younger. They think, oh, hey, as long as you're separated and you made it clear that you're separated. But it can be dangerous. It really can be dangerous. But even, and some people point this out rightly, even if she had now perfectly divorced, got the papers in her hand, and moved on, this guy could still come back and kill him anyway because she's still my wife in my mind. She's still my wife. So actually, if you're have that weird possessive quality and obsessive quality, I don't care what paperwork is involved. Either one of them could get killed by him. So, yeah. Let me go to some of your comments. Everyone has their limits. They do. Oh, Michaela, you would. How about it? Oh, this is okay. It is entirely possible. I can't determine that. Apparently she attracted this guy and she attracted this guy. She's doing better than me. And I'm yeah. He has never said she was that. He never said she was that. Is she conniving, clever, controlling, manipulative? Not controlling, manipulative? Maybe. I don't know. Did she drive him to? I don't know. The problem is we can go back and try to figure out who's at fault where. The fact is a crime went down. And that's where the issue comes down to. No matter what, the crime is not permissible. And that's one thing people have a really difficult time with. It's the same issue with the Luigi Mangione case of shooting of Brian Thompson, the CEO, the health CEO. A lot of people talk like, I really don't feel that much empathy. And I did a whole show on that. I don't feel that much empathy toward Brian Thompson. And and some people think this Luigi is a folk hero. He's not, is it? He's allegedly committed the crime and looks like he did. He would be a psychopath who wanted to be famous. And he picked a cause. That's what I believe, like a mass murderer. And regardless of your feelings on either side of it, I don't care if you don't like the victim. I don't care if you sort of have some sympathy for the killer. It's a crime to murder somebody on the street of New York in an assassination. That's the end of the story. And we can argue all the other points until the cows come home of who was the nicer person. If somebody comes in here today and shoots me dead, you can all argue. You people who are my patrons who like me will say, oh, she was such a nice person. She's very blah, blah, blah. And then they're all my haters who I try to block. I go, that woman is and she's the fraud and you're going to hear it from both sides. Which one do you believe? I don't know. It doesn't really matter because if somebody killed me, they committed a crime. They're the ones we're concerned about and we want them off the street. So let's stay with that. She looks healthier in the second pic. She looks fine in both pics. What's wrong with you, Paul? Besides which, don't pay attention to pictures. They never mean anything. Pictures are all a matter of makeup, lighting. I know, even when I was younger and looked better. I have some photos of me, which my haters use, and I'm like, I look like hell. I mean, I'm like, oh, good God, They took it off some television show where I had a bad makeup artist and bad lighting, and they're like, see, this is bam, bam. I'm like, well, I do look like crap. And other times I've had a really great picture, which I didn't even plan, and I'm like, wow, I look great in that picture, and I didn't even face app it, I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. No, you're scary, man, Michaela. Although that would be interesting. I might do it just for maybe just for the amusement of it. It could be interesting because I don't want. Actually, I have no plans for eulogy. Just to let you know, our family, we disappear in our family. So when I die, the whole rule in our family is you cremate me, put my ashes in some kind of jar of some sort. My daughter says she wants a vodka, some kind of vodka, some kind of vodka container. I forgot which one it was. And then you go to the Irish bar. And we're not Irish, but you put the bottle up on the bar, and everybody just gets drunk. And we skip the eulogies, because we're just not really mushy people. And I'm like, I don't really want people sitting around going, oh, Pat was such a wonderful person. No. Whatever I do here, the day I leave, God bless you all, I'm out of here. It's just, I don't really want a eulogy. I don't want a funeral. I don't want a memorial service. No. I have no interest in any of that. So I've already done what I've done. You either love me or you don't. You hate me or you don't. I leave whatever legacy I leave. I'm over. So I'll rather Wall Street furniture. Oh my God. My sister-in-law passed a few months ago, and she wanted a party instead of a funeral. All right. Yeah, I'm good with that. It's like, just get together, and if you want to sit there in a corner and say, oh, do you remember when mom did this? That's fine. I just don't want you to stand up in front of a freaking audience and go, mom was a most wonderful person. I just know we're just not like that in our family. We're just not. That's just the way we are. And I know other people have beautiful funerals, beautiful memorial services. And my Aunt Lily, who was really not my aunt, but my favorite line in that whole service was she was one of the last people out of one of the ship's boats that before everybody got killed in Germany. She was Jewish, but she was kind of agnostic, and she was into Khalil Gibran. Anyway, her husband died early, so she spent her 40 years in New York, walking the neighborhoods, helping everyone. It's like, good morning, Mr. Gomez. How are you today? How is your stomach? I brought you some soup. She was just like the sweetest person. She lived with a couple cats in her little fourth floor walk-up for years. And when she died, I thought, they had this, I was like, oh, I wonder if anybody remembers her. And so one of her relatives, because she didn't have any kids, gave a memorial service. And I went to that. So best memorial service I ever went to, because my uncle, he sent a eulogy, and the minister standing up in this Presbyterian church, and he's going, never before has a Jewish woman been so honored in a Christian church. And the whole audience, who turned out to be all the people she helped, went, what? She's Jewish? We would have had it at the synagogue. I mean, got to appreciate that one. But for me, our whole family, we have never had a funeral, never had a memorial service. We just never have. This is who we are. And we just move on. Doesn't mean we don't love each other. Doesn't mean we don't remember each other. We're just not very mushy. And so we don't do well with that. So my sister died, a few weeks ago of ALS. And her daughter asked me, she goes, to my sister and I, she goes, to her aunties, and she goes, what should I do? Do we have a service or something? And what do you do in the family? And we looked at it and said, we don't do anything. She goes, oh, okay, that'll work. And she adored her mother. She's an only child, only daughter of her mother. But she's like us. So, so doesn't mean we don't love the person who passed away. We're just not like that. So, sorry, Pat, your granddaughter will be talking about you forever and ever, about her YouTube granny, how great she was to her. Hey, I've left behind whatever we leave behind. That's it. I mean, I just don't need the big eulogy crap. I just don't need that, except for if Michaela wants to do it. That could be really interesting. Oh my goodness. I appreciate your work, but don't fully agree, and that's okay. You're correct. That is okay. By the way, I'm always okay with that. This is an educational channel. You're supposed to learn from it. And people are always going to disagree at some point. The only thing I ever ask is respect. Since it's my home, my channel, as long as if you disagree and you're polite about it, I'm good. Sometimes people give me a good run for my money, but if you just say, you're an idiot, then you're gone. Then you're gone. Oh, that'll be. I don't know. I don't think that's Lisa. I don't think my granddaughter's. Who knows? I don't. Of course, my daughter is a detective, and she's on her 20th year of being in Prince George's County. we never discuss anything. We discuss no cases. We're in two separate worlds. And but she did become a detective, my daughter, and I wanted her to become a teacher. She's my only daughter, and I wanted to. I don't know. I had this idea. I just wanted to raise her. I want everything to be sweet for her. You know, flowers and dollies, and I don't know. I had this idea. And then when she got older, she went into police work. I went, what the hell? she goes, Ma, you left murder scene photos all over the desk in your study. I'm like, oh. So I got blamed. Oh, gosh. I think some of them. Are you speaking of yourself, Michaela, or somebody else? We have fun. Lex says, I just been listening today, too lazy to open my eyes this morning. Lex, you have to go over to my Dear Profiler Pat channel, the one about how I hate winter. Yeah, check that one out. And I'm not a morning person. 10 o'clock is the earliest I like to get up. So I'm with you, Lex. Totally with you. So, oh, God. Good thing your daughter didn't become a psychic. Loretta, if she had become a psychic, I would not be a nice human being to her. Yeah, I know. I hate her. She's Loretta saying it because she knows I'm really despise psychics getting involved in police work. But I think my daughter would do this when it comes to psychics and her police work. So, whoa. Lisa says, maybe why you're polite today, Michaela. She forgot her meds. Oh, come on. Lord. But anyway. So anyway, that's my thoughts on this case. It was so fascinating in that it was such a circumstantial case. I mean, what a circumstantial case is this? I mean, and as I point out, there's other circumstantial cases which are even more obvious than this one, in the sense that circumstantial evidence is not necessarily. It's like, oh, which case was that? I'm trying to remember. It was. All I remember was that somebody got shot with a certain gun and a certain ammo. And this person who was convicted of shooting them, like, went to a gun shop and bought the gun and the kind of gun and the kind of ammo, like so many hours before. I can't remember the whole case now, hours before. And everything else also linked to them as circumstantially. And the claim was by the defense attorney, well, just because she bought a gun and ammo similar to the gun and ammo that killed the person, and she bought it just a few hours before she killed the person was killed, doesn't mean she did it. You're like, so there was a whole bunch of things that linked one to the murder. And so some circumstantial cases are incredibly obvious, and you don't need direct evidence. You don't need a witness. You don't need DNA. It's so flaming obvious. However, in this case, since there was no direct evidence, no witnesses, and no DNA, no fingerprint evidence that says he committed this crime, but the behavioral evidence, the claims he made, the history, his history with her, there was literally no other explanation for this murder. That even his defense can't come up with a good explanation for why anybody else would have murdered him but him. They just try to throw out things that are the things that are like the glove and OJ, or the sock for what's her name? What's that? Oh, come on now. Now I'm blanking. Tell me the sock one. Who's the sock one? What's her name that killed her kids? And then they found the sock, and the defense leans on the sock. Somebody help me out here. Somebody help me. Randy, hi. Haven't seen you in a while. You're like me. I don't do well with winter and cold weather, and I'm a night owl. You are me. I've been that way all my life. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Darlie. Good old Darlie. Yes. Darlie. No, Susan Smith didn't have a sock involved. But the people will point out this one piece of information. one thing that doesn't, you can't explain. And it's always a frustrating thing, and a defense will always use it, because sometimes there's this weird thing that theoretically maybe it could prove the person was innocent, but a lot of times it's just something strange, which for whatever reasons was not the link between this and that is just so unclear that you just can't prove one thing or the other. So the car in this instance is like that. It's like, how did the car get on fire? If he was the one who stole the car, would you not think he's also the one that set the car on fire, considering that there was gas container in there that she says was his, like a gas container, so that he would have. So did he set the car on fire or didn't he? And if he didn't, did he have somebody do it for him, or was a complete stranger, or did he, what happened? And since we can't explain that exactly, the defense will use that. They didn't use it in court very well. I can't find the whole court case. So, but after the fact, in the, he's innocent routine, I will link the guy's information on the guy who's trying to save him, whoever that is, because there's a whole case summary here. It's called freescottdavis.org. I will link it because I think it's only fair to. He's done a lot of work. And it says he sits in prison wrongly accused of the 1996 of David Coffin. There's $150,000 in case you want to collect it. A reward for information in this case, probably from his daddy, I'm pretty sure. It says, and there's a lot of he has some interesting points in here. He does, because he's got a whole thing on case summary, the evidence vault, missing evidence. If you look at it, it has a level of, you could be convinced by some of this stuff. And I think some of it's very interesting. The problem is you have very interesting or somewhat interesting, and I can't get by what happened that links him to this case. I can't get by that. And I can't come up with one possible suspect that isn't him. It makes nothing, no other suspect makes any sense. Now, some people will say, but doesn't that give reasonable doubt in a courtroom? That these couple things, did that not throw reasonable doubt out? Well, that is a good question. I wasn't in the courtroom, so I actually do not know all of the stuff that they heard. And I always say, be very cautious of that, because maybe there was more explained about the car that made sense. Maybe more explained about the shot. He was shot that makes sense. I don't know. Maybe there was a ton more evidence presented in court, which is like, holy crap, regardless of these little teeny inconsistencies or questions I have, it's so obvious that he's guilty that I have to find him guilty, regardless of, like O.J. Simpson. I don't give a crap about that glove. I don't care that Mark, what's his name? I'm not a fan of, that he was a racist. I mean, that to me does not impress me as far as all the other evidence that says OJ was guilty. So, Darley, I don't care about that sock, Darley. Everything else points to you. So, yes, sometimes there's something you can't explain, but that doesn't necessarily cause reasonable doubt, because it's reasonable doubt, not shadow of a doubt. Because if you go with shadow of a doubt, you can pretty much say, look, there's no way we're ever going to know 100% whether somebody's guilty, because you can always go there, but they can't even have a court system that works. I will say one thing: one of the persons who obviously thinks he's innocent wrote this. Do I have it here? Yeah, which just made me laugh, because I agree with him generally. Oh no, that's not it. Shoot, where did I do with it? Where did it go? I lose it again. I forgot to put it up here. Darn it all! It just made me laugh. Let's see if I can find it. Must be this one. Because I don't disagree with him, but he says, innocent until proven guilty, guilty with no evidence. This is why allowing 12 morons to decide someone's fate is totally ridiculous. Oh, by the way, you know me, and the whole I throw people off a bus stop should not be people who try to determine whether someone is guilty or not because they have zero training, as opposed to everybody else in the case. They have zero training to understand what is. So anyway, I always consider it a crapshoot, and I don't think justice should be a crapshoot. But anyway, I did get a jury notification the other day. It was sent to my other address, and so I did ignore it, because I told you can ignore it most of the time because they don't send it certified mail. So anyway, apparently they sent a second one that said, if you don't respond to this, we're going to come after you for $1,000. You got to call the jury office. I didn't have that happen any time before. So I did call the jury office. And I got somebody who called me hun, which really pissed me off right away. And so I'm like, I don't even live there. And I said, and she goes, well, okay, you don't live there, so you will reschedule for it. I said, I don't want to reschedule because I don't believe in the jury system. I'm a criminal profiler as opposed to the civilian jury system. And she said, hun, I don't care what you think. She was not nice. And then she told me that, well, how old are you? He said. I said, I'm 69. She goes, and by the time your next birthday is, I said, I'll be 70 in July. She goes, well, after 70, you don't have to appear for jury duty anyway. So why don't you just go with that and you'll never have to appear again? I'm like, okay. She goes, there, hon. I still wanted to make my damn point, hon. My jury notices go in the trash. Oh my God. Cheech. Hello. What about Cheech? The one I was in bed with? Wait a minute. That wasn't Cheech. That was Chong. But anyway. What? Let's just convict. Okay, go to In-N-Out burger place down the street for lunch. Well, sometimes, to tell you the truth, actually, in the system that we're in, after a while, they actually took 4 days to convict. But after a while, they're like, man, damn, I'm tired of this crap we got here. Let's just wrap this up and head out. So I should link that one day. There's an absolutely hysterical Bob Newhart show. My sister sent it to me. It's a Bob Newhart. Put in, if you go, I think you can see it on YouTube. It's Bob Newhart jury. And he goes to this case, and he's appalled by the 12 people off a bus stop. And they're all so ridiculous. He's like, these people are stupid. It's hysterical. It's very, very funny. Oh no, you wouldn't. I don't know if you're talking. Oh, Michaela wants to be on Michaela wants to be on a jury with Texas Redhead. Yeah, you don't want to be a jury with me. I'm surly. Yeah. So I was on a jury for 2 weeks. I did my time. You did. You were incarcerated for 2 weeks. Anyway, okay. Let's see this. With all the law tubers, yes, yelled no evidence against Richard Allen, with hundreds of followers agreeing. Yet 12 random jurors found guilty. Well, some of the interesting thing is that the problem I always have is that it shouldn't be so much of a crapshoot, because 12 jurors could have been some of those people on YouTube. And if they had those people, then he would have been found innocent. So which one is it? I mean, it shouldn't be a crapshoot. I mean, justice shouldn't be a crapshoot. There should be people there who understand how to analyze evidence, so that at least they have a 95% chance of being right. But when you go with a civilian jury, don't know, good-hearted as they may be, they don't understand how to analyze evidence. And I see that in my comments many times. You believe you me. And I'm like, oh my God, I hope you don't go on a jury. All you need is one to screw it all up. So how can it be justice if you're rolling the dice on people who are untrained to make determinations? It's ludicrous. And I cannot fathom how this continues. I honestly can't. But anyway, so I'm going to stop now. Okay. So anyway, yeah, fascinating case, just because it was, wow, what an interesting one. Somebody, thank you for the person who sent this in to me. So I will see some of you at the Hangout this week, which will probably be Thursday. Yeah, my chorus is over, because I was doing chorus on Thursday. So until it starts up again, I have the choice between Wednesday and Thursday now for the Hangout. But let's see if last week was full of breaking news. It was so crazy that I had done the Hangout from the week before, and I always do the Hangout, and I usually wait I do hang out Wednesday or Thursday, and I usually put it up on Monday or Tuesday, somewhere around there. But there was breaking news, and so it was about an hour's worth of material in my hangout, which was all to do with Hannah Kobayashi, the woman who disappeared in LA and went to Mexico, and also on the shooting of Brian Thompson, the CEO. And during the hangout, it was brand new news, so I gave some ideas, and I spent a lot of time talking about it. But then I did all these videos on the two cases, and I'm like, this is going to be the most. When I finally would put the hangout on, it's going to be so boring. So I had my son cut all the parts out, not because I was wrong, which some people will think, but because it was boring. Because we'd already passed so much further. But I didn't expect both of those cases to come to a head right there in that week. So, but I did put that. So I did have my son edit it, and I put it up. But generally speaking, that was a very busy week. Normally I don't do so much videos, but it was one breaking news thing after another that was actually fascinating. So I wanted to do commentary. So I'm hoping this is a week before Christmas. So I'm assuming things will calm down a wee bit, and a lot of people get busy and don't even pay attention to me anymore. So I have to live with that till New Year's. So, Christoph, you're new, and I'm glad you're here. This one was earlier. Last time you came to the hangout, like I know you're in Germany, right? And you came to the hangout at 1:00 in the morning. I'm like, he's a good patron. But this is a better time for you. There's a 9:00 for you, so reasonable. Great show and interesting case. Thank you, Pat, and bye everyone worldwide. Till next hangout. Glad you're here. That's great. Yeah, there was. It was crazy. It was a crazy week. Yeah, I don't usually do a ton of videos. That's true. I mean, I only do videos when I think I have something to say. I don't, because again, I always say I'm not a storyteller. I'm not a news reporter. I only do something if I have something to actually analyze. But it was a crazy week. It really was. So, yeah. But things will probably get quiet as Christmas approaches. So, thank you, Dee Dee. I appreciate that. Loretta says, thanks, Pat. I can't make the hangouts because I got so much work. I totally understand that. So, and no biggie. So I'm glad you're here for the cases. That's cool too. Oh no. Oh, you were on call for federal jury. I'm glad they didn't have any trials at that time. Before I go, I just got to say this. They put me on this is how stupid the whole thing is. If they put me on a murder case, which I would be good at, of course, the defense attorney will never allow me to be on a murder case. They put me on a financial case. I suck at financial stuff. I mean, I have been totally thrilled that, remember the days you used to have to keep the stupid checkbook? I had failed at that dismally. I was so thrilled when everything became electronic and it just did it for me. So I do not have real estate. I do not have stocks and bonds. I don't have anything fancy with any kind of financial stuff because I don't like it. I don't understand it. I do very basic stuff like put money in the bank and get screwed. But I just don't do that stuff just because my brain doesn't go there. I will not understand anything. You put me on a financial case and you're an idiot if you put me on a financial case. So I don't understand why would that happen? So there's so many cases which I know that I would have no expertise in. Even as a criminal profile, if I were asked to be on a case like that, I would say I am not appropriate for that case. Get somebody who knows what the hell they're doing. And yet, 12 people at a bus stop who have no idea half the time what the case is about or what the evidence even means. I think it's absolutely atrocious. But there again, I seem to be in the minority on this, and I'll say this till I croak. And I've learned in life that you can't always make the impact you would like. There's a lot of things I'd like to make an impact on, but I have very little. I have very little success. But I try to have a sense of humor and not too much of ego, and just go. That's the way things are. So. There, hey, we're good friends then, Siobhan. Yeah, I forget that stuff. Oh my God. So anyway, I am making it. Wait a minute. You are making an impact. Well, I hope in some way. That's Yeah, don't torture me, Loretta. I don't understand it. No, no. Anyway, but yes, I try to make the impact. I try to do what I can do, but I always understand that, and everybody should understand this. You can only do what you can do, and sometimes things don't. You don't have the success in areas you'd like to have the success in, and that's the way life works. And try not to beat yourself up over it or get angry at everybody else because it didn't work out. And that's just it. I mean, how many famous artists do we have that made $50 in their lifetime and cut their ears off or whatever, and now their stuff is selling for millions, and they're like probably from beyond the grave going, get out of here. You wouldn't even pay. I couldn't even buy food that week. Nobody would buy my painting. So sometimes in the long run, you can have great effect after you've passed on from this world. And sometimes you have no effect whatsoever. But no effect whatsoever in a huge way. Let me rephrase that. But you always have an effect on your family, your friends, and your community. And if anybody can do that, that's something that actually makes a difference. So, yeah. Anyway, thank you guys for being here. If you're new to the channel, do like and subscribe. And I will see you guys, whoever's available, for the hangout this week. See you later.